Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Omar Davis, and I am hosting the Holy Men segment with Mastermind Connect. Now, this segment is a virtual circle that is all about using the tools of alchemy to find inner wisdom and build brotherhood. Holy Men is a space for men to come and talk about the real shit: work, life, relationships, family issues, or pretty much anything on your heart. Now, together, we're going to open up with some guided dialogue on how the brain is wired and why it's important to learn how to use our emotions as an intelligent system. And because we are the alchemists, we will discuss the chemistry of our feelings and how vulnerability and courage is all intertwined. We'll also talk about some things to really redefine. And with that said, I'm going to be doing that with my brothers of my Mastermind Connect club in Brotherhood. And today we're really going to be talking about perception. So we'll get into that a little bit, the perception of unlearning and what we've been taught and all that fun stuff. But right now, let's go ahead and bring my brothers on. We're going to have first Garcia, one of my mastermind brothers, who is not only a super talented man, but he is a man that I respect with all of my heart and all of my being. Not only is, like when you see this man and when you're in the presence of this man, he's a god. He's a king, and and as he is here smiling with us, I just really appreciate everything that he is and everything that he does, and I'm glad to not only know him. I'm blowing up right now, but I'm also glad to be in the presence of him. And another brother of mine, Charlie Vargas. Charlie is also another dynamic brother. He is someone who is actually is a big influence, just like AR. They both have many, many things. They both come from two different backgrounds. So not only are we going to have something that's going to be amazing for you, but you're going to be able to tap into these two gentlemen who not only bring the fire, but their intellect and their understanding is by far, they're men. If I could say, just based on what I know about them, they're men. And, they define that each individually for themselves. And that's what's beautiful about not only our brotherhood, but about this conversation with holy men, is to really tackle some of these things that define manhood. And let me just go ahead and let them get some love real quick. AR, Charlie, what's going on, fellas?
What's going on?
Thank you, Philip. Man, all is well.
The feelings are mutual. Thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, fellas. And, we are just a bunch of kings up in here trying to do our thing and spread our joy and spread our truth. So that's one of the beautiful things about having you two on, is because we come from separate backgrounds, but yet we have a lot in common. We have a lot of things that we identify with. And also, we have a lot of things that we possibly don't identify with. And that's some of the things that I really want to even highlight, is the differences of what it means to really be a man. And in today's society, especially, the identity of a man and the essence of a man has changed from what we were taught to what is now. So before we dive too deep on them, I'm actually curious, because this is a question that I have for both of you, but understanding what we need to unlearn. We've been taught some things that don't necessarily work. But I'm curious, what have we been taught? Like, what would you say that we as men have been taught today about, well, what have we been taught in our past, and how does that reflect with today's man? Any of you want to jump on that? Whoever's first, go for it.
No, I can jump on that. I think what we've been taught is super arbitrary, in which it's very little to do with biology. A whole lot more to do with environment and the characteristics of those environment. Depending if you live in an urban area where things are rough and attitudes are a bit more assertive, you learn how to be a man in that environment. If you grew up in an environment where the financial resources were strained, and those that had the financial ability to provide were hailed as men, then you grew up thinking that was what it meant to be a man. If you grew up in a fighting culture, if you grew up in in a culture where men demanded respect, and and that was valued not only by men but by women, then that's what you considered a man. I think at the end of the day, um, just to bring it back, I think at the end of the day, you know, many young men, and I'm generalizing, I could only speak for myself now, um, you know, growing up in an environment where not only the culture influenced you, but the movies influenced you. The music influenced you. Your family influenced you. And sometimes as a young man, if you're not doing the work, or if you don't have someone in your ear encouraging you to become a whole person, not just take bits and pieces of what you think it is to be a man, um, you may be vulnerable to confusing uh, love for respect. So then you invest all of this mental real estate into wanting to earn respect as opposed to love. And I think that's where young men become adults, and they've invested too much in other things that don't necessarily relate to love, but the reason they're doing it is because of love. And so, yeah, so again, you grew up in an environment where it was glorified that you had many women. Me personally, um, I'm not sure if you want to start sharing personal experiences. I'm not sure if I'm ranting too much, but
By all means.
why don't you just
Yeah, for sure. You
all right.
sure did. And the personal experience is always what really connects. So we're definitely open to that.
Okay, well, I don't want to take up too much time, but I think my personal experience, I was raised with in the Dominican household. Both of my parents were immigrants from the Dominican Republic, and um, and I was blessed to have my father for the first 6 years of my life. And in the beginning, he didn't show any signs of what it meant to be a man. He was someone that he prided himself on being extremely social, on being loving, on being the life of the party. I didn't necessarily see that as something specific to a man, because I did see those personality traits in women relatives. Um, so I didn't see too much of that. Okay, so this is how a man is supposed to act, until I became the age of maybe 5 or so, and I recall this one specific incident where he showed me a Playboy magazine, and while I was looking at these pages confused, and him and his friends were laughing at me, pretty amused by my befuddlement. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
I learned at an early age that, okay, so I guess it's okay. It's somewhat normal to somewhat see some women as objects. And that was only reinforced when, as a young boy, I tell my mother about this, and she was totally against it. She also got pretty upset at my father. So at a very early age, that I learned that there was a difference in behaviors when it came to that, and that's what started it all for me. And then when you get to school, you see that the sports. If the young ladies like the bigger, like the tougher kids, then you
yeah,
yourself proved that you were tougher. So it just evolves depending on where you're at in your life. Once you become a professional, alpha male is you want to be the best in your industry. So it all depends.
yeah. Yeah, it does all depend. You're absolutely right about that. And I'm interested to hear your ideas and your perspective on that, AR. What have we been taught, and how does that reflect or relate to the present man that you are today?
Um, like Charlie, I grew up also in a Dominican household, and my parents are as well immigrants. Although my mom is now a U.S. citizen, but um, I think taught is, is is kind of the wrong word for a Latino growing up in my house, it almost seemed um, like my father was conditioning you to have a set mind frame. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I have a one man show that I wrote and I performed. Charlie was actually at the last time that I performed it, and it's called The Broken Bachelor. And in this one man show, I talk about my dad and how no matter what I did growing up, whether it was being a musician and playing the piano, whether it was playing sports, playing baseball, whether or later on in my life becoming a writer and following those passions, like he was he glorified and he backed and he was supportive of everything that I did, and he made sure that he taught and conditioned that whatever I started, I finished, and he applied that to being a man. He would condition me to believe that whatever word I gave, like if I was going to start, I remember starting piano, and at some point I thought it was hard, and I didn't want to become a professional musician. And he said, "You gave your word that you were going to do this, and you had to do it." Um, and so that was him conditioning that was an idea of manhood. But he would take everything that I was good at, anything that I had any type of success at. I mean, I don't care if it was like third place in the spelling bee, right? Like he would turn it, he would turn it and be like, "Yo, this is dope because you know you get to be you get to be a good baseball player, you get to be a good pianist or whatever, you get to be the best, but girls like this." And he would always attach it to women.
Yeah.
You know, after a while, you start to believe that that is the definition of that your manhood is directly tied to how you can conquer and how you could um, attain women. And
Mm.
um, even even with business, in my household, my my parents were business owners, and he would always say that that was also a form, like he would be proud to show me how everyone knew him and knew my
Mm.
and everyone respected him because of the status, right? And then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
he would equate that to being a man, and it was almost like we use the word taught, right? But it was almost like a daily thing, like a daily kind of reminder. Like it was, and I realized it now that it was a programming, a condition,
Mm.
like and although there were really really deep and accurate values in a lot of the core shit, but it was like right when you were about to get to the end, you were like, but wait, I'm doing all of this for what? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm to get girls, like you know what I'm saying? Like, or just to have money so people could could see that I was a big guy. And it was it wasn't crazy to me as a young man, right? It just felt like there was this pressure to be the best athlete, because that's what it meant to be a man, to be the best musician, because
Yeah.
that's what it meant to be a man, to
Yeah.
be the best kind of quote unquote, kind of gigolo or playboy, because that's what it meant
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be the best businessman, and have the money, have the clothes and the cars, because that's what it meant to be a man. And it's funny that um, it wasn't until um, I was about 15 that he started to change, and it wasn't because I feel like anything happened to him in his mind, but as you all know, I have children, and my oldest son is 26, And so, you know, I found out about him when I was 15, and she didn't give birth till I was 16, right? So I had him when I was 16, but I found out when I was like at the tail end of 15, right? And uh, I found out through, you know, just to share the personal experience, and I found out through a letter that she had sent to me through via a friend. And I called my father, and he picks me up, and I'll never forget. You know, we're in the car. He's sitting in the front. I'm sitting in the back, and he was a really good dad. He was there for all like my baseball game. Like my dad was like the Dominican Grover Cleveland, right? And he was just always. But he reads the letter, and he says, he asked me 3 questions. He gives me the letter back, and he kind of like looks back, and he says to me, "Is it yours?" And I said, "I believe so." Second question, "Are you sure?" And I said, I believe that's mine. Yeah, I believe the baby's mine. And then the third question was, "What are you gonna do?" And I said to him, "Well, you taught me to finish everything that I start. So, you know, and to own up to everything that I do. So I have fun in the bed. I'm gonna have to raise this kid." And he says, "Okay." And he turns around and he turns the car on. And I was like, wait, that's it? I said, you know, like, you're not surprised? And he says, "No, because I taught you to man up. You know, I taught you to take responsibility for your actions." And it felt like such a Mr. Miyagi moment. Yeah, because I felt like everything that he was teaching me was only to get girls. And although some of that was really, really true, right? That was like the male bravado and the male chauvinist in him. But he was teaching me a lot of values, and what I had not realized until I was maybe 20 years old, and reflecting back on that moment, was that my father taught me accountability. And that was the reality of manhood. And it was crazy. Like you never know what you're being taught. You never know what you're being conditioned. And obviously there were a lot of the things that I mentioned that were extremely negative that I had to decondition, you know, as I grew up. You know, kind of the old adage, you know, you take the good and you shut off the bad. But, you know, that takes as many decades or more listening than it was to program me, you know?
Yeah, exactly, man. That's beautiful. I'm grateful to hear that story for many reasons. For one, it shows a lot of dynamics there, right? A lot of dynamics of how love shows up, and also how perception, like we said earlier, what Charlie was saying, how perception of that love shows up. But like what you said at the end is like him teaching you accountability, man. Like, damn, that's just real. And I can see it even in the way that you talked about the story. You know, all those things were really to teach you to be accountable. Now, with that said, the idea of accountability or then perception, like what then defines manhood? You know, what would you guys say would define manhood in a sense of everything that you've learned, everything that we've been through, and where we're now going as men, and the opportunities we even have, right? We have opportunities to sit here and talk about our feelings and shit. Like what? Our parents weren't doing that shit for sure. And so I'm curious, like, especially to the audience out there. And if anyone out there has any questions, by all means, leave it in the comment. We will try to address anything that you guys bring up. But let's tackle that. What defines manhood?
I mean,
and that's even speaking to, you know, not only hetero men, but also homosexual men.
Right, exactly. So, right, because you don't want to silence any other narratives or voices, right? And that's one thing. You know, that's also what I think being being a man is like just really being conscientious of your surrounding, right? And someone who strives daily to know himself, right? Someone who knows his strength as well as his blind spots. And who understands that knowledge without wisdom serves no purpose. Confucius had a quote, which I love. It was that he who conquers himself is the greatest warrior. And I think, man should strive to be that greatest warrior, but the war is within. And and seeing challenges as an opportunities to grow, comfortable
Yeah.
with responsibility, willingly take on responsibilities that most people will find overwhelming, consumed with purposeful tasks, allow himself to
Yeah.
feel all emotions, the good, the bad, the complicated. And again, someone who's constantly working on himself spiritually, mentally, physically, financially, someone who is conscious enough to keep the ego on a strict diet, who sees the need in building communities, loving their children, and building legacy.
That's great. I appreciate that, really. How about you, AR?
Like I said before, I think manhood starts with you, the man, first,
Yeah, man.
and that is extreme. Like accountability got to be a fucking extreme sport for you.
Yeah.
'Cause that is like the hardest thing to do is to say you're wrong when you're the pillar, right?
Facts.
When you're like the quote unquote beacon, when you're the quote unquote man of the house. Um,
Yeah.
um, I was having a conversation with another brother, and he's married, got kids, and um, and he said to me something like, I pay for this mortgage, I I provide in this house, I protect my family, you know what I'm saying? And he just went on a grocery list of what he does, and then he said, um, I'm the head of the house, and she can handle all that emotional shit. And I said to him, I said, don't you go to church? And he said, yeah. I said, I'm not too religious. I'm not too much of a religious dude anymore. I said, but I said, I would beg to differ about the emotional shit. I said, if you the quote unquote man of the house, I think that everything should flow through you first, starting with that love. I think
Mhm.
that that's what being a man is about. Like you're gonna like Charlie said, you're gonna take on these responsibilities, and you're gonna do it willingly, and you're going to do it, um, and you're gonna do the best that you can.
Hell yeah.
You're gonna be accountable for 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 all of your actions and everything that is asked of you. And I in in my daily walk, you know, especially with my children, I try to be as accountable as possible. I try to love them more than they love me. I try to um, be the best example that I can be. Um, and more than anything, I try to be as honest with myself as much as possible, being that that is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes face that man in the mirror. Um, and people, most of us have real problems with that. Just trying to look at ourselves in the mirror. And I think as a man, that is like your first duty. Like you get up and you look at yourself in the eye, and you see where your weaknesses are,
Hmm.
and you work on that first. You
Yeah.
work on that first to make you a better person, to
Yeah.
make yourself a better person first, to make you a better father, to make you a better son, to make you a better partner. And I that for me is everything, because
Yeah.
I can honestly say that it's what I've struggled with most, because that's the fear, me not
Yeah.
owning up to not what's expected of me, but what I should be.
Hmm.
That I should be mind, body, and spirit. You know,
Yeah.
and I could, it's been easy for me to say I don't give a shit about what people think about me, but it's what I think about me,
Facts.
that counts, right? And being honest and open about whether, dude, looking yourself in the mirror and saying, all right, bro, you're doing the best that you can. Maybe it's not, maybe it's not enough, but you're trying. Keep on this path, keep going, and not fall into you're a piece of shit, quit, and fuck everything. Like
Work.
it's getting in the mirror and saying, all right, I'm not there yet, but I'm gonna get there.
Right.
And I'm gonna
Yeah,
keep
man.
going. And then conveying that to the motherfuckers
Yeah.
that are in your world and saying, yo, I'm lacking here, right? But I'm working on this shit.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Give me 3 weeks.
Yeah, man.
Give me 6 months. I gotta be that. Right. And yo, like that shit works. That shit works. Right? Because then you feel like there's some growth and people around you see it.
Yeah.
But also when you're real with yourself, people are like, you gain people's trust, because when you're playing the victim all the time, then you lose people's trust, because people start to think that you only see things one way, and that's in the way that only benefits you and relieves you from responsibilities, right? So
Mhm.
when you're like that, when you say, you know what, yeah, I'm a work in progress, I need to fix this, that, and the third, it just makes you appear more rational as a person, and therefore someone that has some legitimacy in who they are, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to, I don't know if you were done, AR, but like, let me know if you were done, because I just wanted to say, what you speak of, I find a lot in the audio book that I'm listening to, Barack Obama. I sense. Yeah,
I heard that here live, right?
yeah.
Compared me to
You
Barack
remind
Obama.
me of a Barack, AR. You remind me of a Barack.
Yo, call me Young Barack. My bad. I'm not gonna interrupt anymore.
So a lot of his audio, he's very self-deprecating. He owns up to when he has failed, which was several times. He's had many mistakes. He's also, there was a constant questioning of whether his ego was at play. And I don't think, and I don't think many folks possess that, which I think to me is what being a full person is. It's like, why do you do what you do? What is persuading you to do what you're doing? Why do you think this way? Why do you, why do you go left and not right? And this constant questioning, it humbles you, because eventually you're going to start questioning your privileges, and once you start questioning your privileges, then you start realizing that as a man, you may be taking up too much space. As a man, you may be gaslighting. Finances. Going back to what Aaron said, finances was a huge component of the male ego in my household, and in the households of many of the folks that I encountered that were a part of the culture, right? Um, you know, many of these men came from our sons of fathers who was the sole providers back when the economy was better, right? And only one person had to go to work, right? But these same men, these sons of those fathers, fathers that were working at an emotional deficit and rationalized it by saying, "But at least I'm providing," right? These same sons are in emotional identity turmoil, because they're also understanding that, oh shit, my wife, my girlfriend, the women in my life don't need me in that same way. They're graduating at higher rates. They're getting jobs. They're starting businesses. They could do without you.
Yeah.
So now a lot of men, now we're forced to look in the mirror, and actually ask ourselves, what is it truly that we bring of value to the table?
Exactly.
can I add to that?
Please do. Please do.
And this is something that I wanted to share before, right? And I think Charlie is absolutely right. Can you guys hear me okay, by the way? Because I know this. Okay.
Yeah, it's better.
I know. I believe Charlie's really onto something here, right? And I believe that a lot of that for a lot of us men is that, and I knew that I had to shift this gear, right? A lot of us that have always believed that whatever our financial position equated to
Yeah, facts, right?
what our masculine position was, right? Was solely because we chose never to deal in legacy. And what that means is that most men work for their first name, right? They work for whatever their first name is, and they don't work for their last name, right? And so my first name is exclusive to me, but my last name is not exclusive to me. It's exclusive to my children, to my grandchildren, to my wife when I get one. Like it will, my last name will encompass my whole legacy. And long after I'm gone, whatever I worked for and whatever I instilled and whatever I conditioned and left to this world, my family can reap the benefits of, even if it's not finance, even if it's not monetary worth, but spiritual worth, even if it's moral worth, even if it's that they freaking work in a warehouse, but they're upstanding men and they're moral men and they're good fathers and good husbands, but that last name will always carry respect and value, and that last name will transcend their kids and their kids and their kids. And I feel like when we give more respect to our last name, then we're more cognizant that this is gonna last, because this flesh is not gonna last. My first name is not gonna last. And even though I got one or two of my sons that carry my first name, right? They're not gonna name their kids that first name, right? That's nothing. How many people aren't named Charlie? How many people aren't named Ariel? How many people aren't named Omar, right? That comes and goes. But I could tell you that there's not as many Davises as there are Omars. There's not as many Vargases as there are Charlies. There's not as many Garcias as there are Ariels. You know what I'm saying? Like, your first name ends, but that last name, and that's what we need to work on. Like, that is, if we're cognizant, like, yo, this is what my manhood encompasses, me being a fruitful fucking guy, somebody that plants his feet on the ground and gives back and serves. Like, I feel like we forget that real men, right, like cavemen, used to serve their families. If you think going out and hunting and bringing food back is not serving, shit, what does a waiter do? He goes to the kitchen and brings back food. That's what cavemen did.
Facts.
Right? Now, what we want to do, we want to make enough money so we don't ever have to serve our families no more. That don't make no sense. If I can't outserve my children, outlove my children, if I can't outserve my community, outlove my community, then I've done nothing. I've gained nothing, right? Like, then the purpose of being a human being, man or woman, is defeated.
Yeah. And that right there is golden, because everything that you said encompasses the whole general idea. And the general idea is, it's really all about understanding your series of choices. So manhood is not puberty. That's biology. That's just simple, basic ass biology. Just because you go through puberty doesn't mean that you're a man. Just because you make a hefty fortune doesn't necessarily define you as a man. I know a bunch of men or a bunch of adults who still have little boy tendencies. They still act as if they are a young man. or a young adolescent, still learning, still eating baby food, you know, not taking those steps like y'all were saying, accountability. Like manhood, it just so happens to be a series of choices. And that also goes with womanhood, right? With just being an accountable human being is how we eventually end up shaping our communities and our culture. Now, we come from a lot of cultures that they, like in my family specifically, they tried to tell us not a goddamn thing about our history. Why? Because there was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of shame. And they didn't want to carry that shame on, right? And so they literally erased it from the stories. They didn't tell us. They kept it aloof. And so therefore, here I am trying to find my balance, trying to find my understanding, trying to find my manhood, and not knowing where I immediately come from had a large effect, because all the men in my life, they were terrible. Just to be honest, like they were gangsters, they were pimps, they were straight up thugs, you know, and that wasn't a good example. And my father wasn't presently there. So learning all these things as I grew into a man, I started to realize, because it's at one point I was that 26-year-old guy who thought I was a man, but I was really like a 15-year-old emotionally intelligent boy. That's all the emotional intelligence I had was up to the age of 15. And so it was a really big shift for me, because a lot of the things that I've always prided myself on, like what you guys mentioned, is that whole idea of being the best, being the alpha, being the one that is supporting, being the one that is always there. And then that other aspect, as I'm not supposed to actually use my emotions, because that's not what men do. You know, that drove me into mad arguments. That drove me into fights, violence. It drove me into just straight up anger. It drove me into many things that didn't actually support my longevity. You know, anything could have happened in those senses where I was lying to myself and trying to pretty much be something that is not necessarily natural. Now, whenever you see animals in the wild, it's real natural. Everybody says, like, let's just take the lion, for example, right? Everybody sees the lion as like the baddest. Look at the king. You know, he's up there. He's tough. He got this big old mane. But if you start watching, now that we got these video cameras that can actually look at animals when they don't know we looking, what you notice is that the head lion, he's gentle as shit. If he has to buck up, if he has to get aggressive, if he has to assert his dominance, then he will. But it's only for a little bit. He'd be like, ah, and then be like, yeah, you cool. Let's go over here and lay down together. And you'll see lions laying all over each other. You'll see them chilling. You'll see them rubbing each other, patting each other, licking each other, because it's nurturing. That's how families do. They're just a big ass family. And a lot of times we take these concepts and we make them from a primal understanding, and we make them into our sociological understanding. And that's where shit really gets messed up. And what I want to show you guys next is one of the actual reasons why we've taken a primal idea and we've etched it into our social component. But the social component is so much more matured than the primal. Like, we're not still living as primates. We're not still living as like the primal man. Like, nobody doing that. So we got on socks. Like, fuck, that's comfort as fuck. We got toilet bowls and plumbing and shit. Like, nobody primal, son. Chill out. But still, we're trying to adopt these attitudes as if we're trying to still live in the wild. And we do have some comments and questions that I'm going to get to in a second. But before we get to that, I want to show you guys all this video. So David L. Meck. David L. Meck is a quite interesting guy. He was the guy who wrote the book Alpha Wolf, or who coined the phrase Alpha Wolf. And through this coining of the phrase Alpha Wolf, it really spun men into actually, I played it in my headphones. Let me just rewind, pause it really quick. Sorry, guys. But he's going to describe that what he phrased as the alpha male was actually wrong. And so his book and this term alpha male was taken from a regular ass dude, and he twisted it up in his ego. And he said, yes, alpha, then therefore there is a beta, right? But then even with Darwinism, right? Somebody took the ideas of Darwinism and said, ooh, survival of the fittest. But if you read anything about the damn manifesto, it actually talks more about cooperation than it does competition. And so I'm curious to know, how the hell did he take the small typos of competition and the majority of cooperation out of context and say that suddenly we have to survive? We're the survival of the fittest, the strongest survive. And it's absolutely wrong, because the rest of the whole damn memoir talks about cooperation, and that 51% of the herd has to make a decision before anybody moves. So that's literally teamwork, son. It's teamwork. And so now we got all these phrases and all these ideas all wrong. But I want to share with you this really quickly. It's a little quick video. It's like 2 minutes. But the reason I want to share it to you is because it's really important to understand that what you're seeing and what you're understanding and what you're learning, it's all flawed, guys. We didn't learn right, and we've been taught these ideas, and they don't actually support who we are right now. So just check out what this man corrects, because he was the one that wrote the book and that term, the alpha. So he gonna correct all y'all out there who feel y'all alpha.
The term alpha isn't really accurate when describing most of the leaders of wolf packs, because the term implies that the wolves fought and competed strongly to get to the top of the pack. In actuality, the way they get there is merely by mating with a member of the opposite sex, producing a bunch of offspring, which are the rest of the pack then, and becoming the natural leaders that way, just like with a pair of humans producing a family. Instead of using the term alpha for a wolf, instead of saying alpha male or alpha female, scientists now tend to call wolves like that the breeding male and the breeding female. And or you can call them the mother wolf and the father wolf. There's really nothing wrong with that. Those are much better and more accurate terms than the term alpha. Actually,
now I think that's enough. You know, he actually goes on to talk a little bit more, but because of time, we're gonna go ahead and cut that off right there. And I want to go ahead and just bring that. Now that we have this identity, or the lies that society has given us of this construct of the alpha, now that the man that actually coined that phrase is saying that was their mom and dad. So now we bring it back to that identity of love, right? Now we bring it back to that identity of what AR and Charlie were talking about that identity of being vulnerable, right? Accepting emotions and being able to be emotional and accountable. Now, FYI, men, all of you men out there, if you are not accountable for your emotions, then I'm sorry, you're not accountable. If you justify getting pissed off and screaming at somebody, but yet don't take accountability for the fact that you lost your shit, like, come on. Like, if somebody came up from the street and started yelling at you, you can be like, yo, dude was tripping. Same situation whenever you at the house, right? If you come up and start yelling at somebody, dude was tripping. You know, and here's a really good example of that for me in my life, in my home. Just before, you know, I had a situation with my family. You know, we decided to house sit a dog today, and I'm really allergic to dogs, but I'm like, you know what, it's cool. I love dogs, actually. So we're chilling with the dog, we hanging out. And suddenly I'm like having this intense ass allergic reaction. I have hives. I'm like red in the face. You can still see some of the redness of my reaction. And so it's at one point, you know, my youngest son, he gets upset, and it triggered me. And not to say that he shouldn't get upset. I let him have a moment, but I left and I came back and he was still upset. And then that little boy in me, or that part that was hurt, my feelings were hurt, because I'm like, yo, but what about me? Like, I'm over here, like, I can't breathe. My eyes are itchy. Like, my whole body is itchy. Look at my face. And I'm like, huh. And then internally, I took that as, damn, man, like, don't nobody ever care about how I feel, man. Don't nobody ever care about me, man. Don't everybody ever, like, really, give a damn about how I feel. And so I responded to my son. I said that, I was like, damn, it's like, don't you care about how I feel? Like, I'm having a damn allergic reaction. And so he starts crying more. And then I get into a little scuffle with his mom. But while I'm in my space thinking about the interaction, going back to what Charlie and what AR was saying about being the best dad, like, I understood that my son was hurt. but I now need to have a conversation with him and let him know that I was also hurt. And so our two hurts are combating each other. And so I just had to say, yo, my man, like I'm sad too. Like, I'm sorry. But, you know, at the end of the day, I wish that you can understand that right now I'm really uncomfortable. Like, daddy does not feel well. And so by us even having that interaction, it rewrites, you know, like AR was saying, like admitting that, you know what, I should have maybe not snapped like that. And then coming at him and being like, you know what, we both hurt and it's okay. And just letting that be that. And, you know, we pounded out the room. He's like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go back to playing my games. And I'm like, dope, do you, homie? And so with that said, that old alpha idea, right? Because if I would have tried to be the alpha, I'm like, shut up, sit down, stop crying. You know, that's the old O. I would have did all that. But the new me is like, yeah, you should really think about his feelings too. My feelings were hurt, and maybe you should talk about that because my feelings were hurt, and not necessarily making him the target of my feelings, right? And so that is the identity of being vulnerable, and it took courage. Like AR said earlier, it's the fear. Like, I was literally afraid to actually have a conversation with my son about how I felt because I wanted to stay in my ego. I wanted to stay mad. I wanted to stay, nah, homie, nah, they don't give a damn about me. You know, they just don't. Every time it's something, you know, daddy's feelings never matter. And so I just shut that voice down and I say, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and have this conversation. So it took me being vulnerable and having some courage in order to redefine and reprogram some of the ways that I was in my past. Now, we don't have enough time to really get into courage and vulnerability, but I just wanted to say to all you out there, all the men, courage and vulnerability, they cannot be separated. They're hand in hand. In order to be vulnerable, you have to have courage. And in order to step into courage, you have to make yourself vulnerable. So therefore, vulnerability is not weakness. It's not being a bitch. It's not some punk ass shit. It's not that bitch ass nigga on the corner. It's none of that stuff, because that's all the terms that we talk about it. Or it's not being somebody said some stupid shit to me the other day, but I can't think of it. But anyways, that is not vulnerability. Vulnerability is being honest with yourself and then being brave enough to tell the world how you feel about it. Straight up. And like AR said, that's just scary sometimes. That makes you afraid.
You know what, Omar? I had a story, but I know we don't have enough time about vulnerability.
No, we have about 10 minutes, but maybe your story could.
It's going to be
maybe
really
maybe it can time into the question.
okay.
And the question ending is strength is blank. And again, this is your platform. Whatever that blank is for you, that's real. But go ahead and tell the story and then go into that.
Yeah, well, you know, I think strength is, in some weird way, strength is honesty, right? You know, my story is you know, it dealt with my girlfriend, in which we were out at the beach and she was by, you know, we were at the shore and she was going deeper and deeper into the waters. And you know, and I know how to swim, but I've always had a real appreciation for the ocean. You know, I was raised to fear the ocean. My mother didn't know how to swim, so I would always hear her voice whenever I saw the ocean. My girlfriend didn't have that experience, so she goes out and she continues swimming into the deep end, and I'm like, babe, I need you back. So you know, at this point, it becomes a quick, like, tug of war between, like, okay, like, are you trying to tell me what to do? And as soon as I sensed that, instead of, like, you know, raising my voice, in which, you know, some, or maybe an old me would have done, I was like, you know what? It's true. I'm probably asking you to come closer into where, you know, we can see the sand. Because one, I fear the ocean, and two, maybe there's this, like, misogynistic, you know, way of me looking at this, like, as if I need to protect you, as if I need to make sure that everything is well with you, as if you can't take care of that on your own. That's how I feel. But right now, because we're here in the ocean and this is pretty uncomfortable for me to discuss, you mind if we talk about it by the shore? And it worked. And it worked. And it worked. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I was vulnerable, I was honest, and I was courageous about being vulnerable. And I was able, and I saw strength in that because I was able to get my way.
Yeah, that's huge. But there it is, vulnerability
I
and
didn't want to get my way, but you know what I'm saying. Like we addressed.
I know what you mean. I know. You were able to express yourself without actually without being the chauvinistic male that says, get your ass over here. Yeah.
Right.
So AR, quickly before we get into some of these some of these questions, strength is blank. And that's also for you people too. Leave it in the comments. Strength is blank.
I think that I learned something new about strength within the last few months. My twin daughters came to live with me, and for a while, and I always thought that I was just supposed to exhibit certain things a certain way, and I realized that strength required a level of compromise that I never knew existed, and within that, what Charlie encompasses what Charlie said about strength having honesty, and what you said, it being vulnerability, and sometimes compromising your fears, sometimes compromising what you've learned, sometimes reconciling that you don't have all the answers, and sometimes strength means putting your trust in somebody else's hands. Specifically, somebody that you love, somebody that you're caring for, somebody that maybe I don't think it's wrong for Charlie to feel like he wanted to protect his girlfriend, right? Like that
yeah.
But knowing and having the strength to come to a compromise, to show your vulnerability, and to put somebody else's feelings your own. I think that's real strength, and having the ability to love unconditionally, knowing that you're not perfect. I don't think that strength is one thing, man. I think strength is forgiveness.
Facts.
I just think strength is all those things.
That's great, man. Everything you said, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, oh shit, that's amazing. Forgiveness, oh goddamn. But you're right. Strength is all those things. And I would say even that forgiveness and that love aspect that you said last, man, that whenever you have the ability to forgive, then you literally are the strongest person in the room. Now, there was a young, let me look for it real quick. A young lady asked, how do you turn out to be different than the men that you grew up with? Is that correct? I'm trying to find that. Oh, if you didn't have a male figure, how did you grow to be different to the males in your life? Well, I think that was to me because I didn't have any males, because they were badass examples, honestly. Like, by the time I was 8, my uncles were taking me to the whorehouse. They was taking me to the crack houses, showing me what they do and how they run this shit. And I'm like, crack is whack, son. Like, I want to, I ain't trying to be up in here, And so it was I used them as an example, not to actually, not to live by what they showed me. And I didn't obviously want to be in a crack house. So I just chose not to. I guess common sense. I don't know. But I wanted to leave you all with something. And because we have 3 minutes left, this is going to be a really quick, easy, something that you can all do. And it's going to be a little quick 1-minute inner child meditation. And the reason that we like to focus on the inner child, because a lot of times these programs, like AR was saying earlier, the conditioning, it happens when we were younger, right? And so it's important for us to go back and maybe pay a little visit to that little person, whether it's a boy or a girl, and just spend time just being in the presence of your inner child. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to have you sit where you are. We're going to lightly close our eyes. And on the count of 3, we're going to take a deep breath into our nose. We're going to exhale out of our mouth. 1, 2, 3. Breathe into your nose as you slightly lower your eyes slowly. Allow them come to a full close as we take another deep breath. And the point of this is to use your visualization. So I want you to imagine and visualize your inner child at the age of 3. And I want you to see, where do you see them? Where are they? And I want you to even recognize, like, what kind of clothes are they wearing? How are they shaped? Like, what's their facial expression? What does their hair look like? Look at their tiny little hands. And I want you to remember this beautiful being. And I want you to just really be captivated by their innocence, their willingness to be so open, their courage to step into this crazy ass world. And I want you to imagine that you're walking up to them and you're just giving them a little tiny hug with their little 3-year-old body. And I want you to sense how you feel in your chest as you just take a little comfort in hugging your child. And I want you to tell that little child, I love you. Thank you. Look who we become. And that child says to you, I'm proud of you. Thank you. I love you. Look who I become. I admire you. And as you step away, releasing the hug, you take a deep breath. You feel the sensations in your body as you open your eyes. And we just reflect really quick. And as we're reflecting, I want to just say thank you to all of you, everyone who's here, whether you're a man or a woman. I see that there's many, many different types of people. I want to thank my wonderful special guests, AR and Charlie. If you don't know what these guys are up to, you can check out their IG, Charlie Vargas, and I am AR Garcia. And you can see what they're doing. You know, they're amazing men. They're amazing individuals. They're super talented in what they do. I won't give too much of that. I'll let you figure that by yourself. Our brotherhood, Mastermind Connect, who is hosting this with me and the platform Holy Men. We're going to be doing a series. So it's going to continue to grow on this conversation. It's going to continue to build. Today was really about perception, manhood. What is it? How have we defined it? Courage, vulnerability. And for some of you men out there, I didn't threw the tomahawk at you with the whole alpha male thing and really bust your head open. So I want you guys to all think about this, right? I want you to take away some tools too. And I want you to have a takeaway so that you can go out and you can possibly influence a man or a little boy or a young adolescent that's in your life. Now, the thing that is homework, right? For all of you out there, I want you to first, one, go and find a man that you know and just ask them what's going on. But don't ask them what's going on like because you don't care. Actually listen. Like sit and listen like, yo, what's up, brother? And listen, let them talk. And then secondly, show some love to men in your family, even if the relationship isn't good. Because once again, strength is blank. Now, with that said, gentlemen, you guys want to shout yourselves out and throw your stuff out there before we get out of here?
I just wanted to say thank you for hosting this. Thank you, Manny Almonte, who's the invisible
Yeah.
architect of this all, and obviously the Brotherhood, Mastermind Connect, for their consistency and dedication in providing resources for the masses, but definitely specifically for the young men that are just simply trying to figure it out. AR, how much I appreciate you. Love to do things in conjunction with you. And to the next time, you can catch me, Charlie Vargas ESQ, on IG. I just got on Clubhouse. Haven't really used it, but
Making fun of you right now.
Charlie V. And yeah, that's about it.
AR?
Omar, thank you so much. You were right when you said in the beginning that every time we get together, it is an experience. And
Yeah.
this, again, did not fail. Like Charlie said, thank you to Manny, who's the wizard behind the curtain. And thank you to Mastermind, because without Mastermind, I wouldn't have met you guys,
Yeah.
And it brought us together. And Charlie, you already know my brother. We've grown to not only in this brotherhood, but a dope friendship, and I cherish that.
Yeah.
And I thank all of you guys that have joined us today. And you can find me across all platforms, including Clubhouse, at I am Garcia. So yeah, you can find me at I am AR Garcia. And thank you again. You guys have a great night.
Yeah, man. And just before we leave, big shout out once again to our Brotherhood Mastermind Connect. If you are interested and you are not a brother of the Brotherhood, then if you see right here on the screen, visit mastermindconnect.com to learn more about our work and apply to become a member. I will say it is a vetted membership. So it's not that we are just accepting anyone and everyone, because what it is, we're protecting our brothers too. So it's really about understanding that when you come to such a place, you have to understand that you have to also show up. We hold each other accountable for a lot of things, and we grow with each other. Like, I've grown with these brothers. I've learned with these brothers. A lot of times I'm just listening. Sometimes I'm in the background just taking in what they're doing and getting inspiration, because they're such dope people. And to Manny, once again, he's in the background right now making all this happen, control all the little boxes and stuff. Big shout out to you, my brother. Thank you for your support as always. And for all the other brothers who are here, we will see you on the flip. The next actual Holy Man episode is on Wednesday, December 23rd, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us, call a friend. Maybe y'all can do like one of them little, what are they, like view things that y'all all do it together. I'm probably dating myself, but with that said, everyone, it's been a pleasure. I can't wait till the next time. I'll see you then. Peace.